Welcome to Combat Sports Talk, a podcast dedicated to UFC and Bellator discussion, the MMA community, and combat sports in general. I'm your host, Ryan Smith, and joining me this week is the entire Combat Sports Talk crew. Everybody's here tonight because we've got a lot of great stuff to talk about. First of all, we're going to go over to my, I guess you're on my right on the screen. That is George G-Money Stallworth. What's up, man?
Hey, what's going on?
All right. Right below me is John, the Keys to Victory Keys.
Man, Rona got everybody in the house tonight, so here we are.
And 2 weeks in a row, a streak of two, Kelechi KC Onyebuchi.
Kedu Kekime. Now no Igbo.
Oh man, and thank you and good night. All right, we're out. All right, wrap it up.
Well, I am so glad because this is the first time. This may be the first time this year. I don't know. Maybe second time this year we've had everybody on the show, and what a show we have this week! Because the top story of the night, the headline of the show this week, is going to be Jon Jones. Let's get into it.
Good.
This is the headliner. This is where we talk about the thing everyone is talking about, and that is the arrest of Jon Bones Jones on Thursday morning at 1 a.m. This guy is getting pulled over by Albuquerque police. Okay, so before we even start talking headlines, what was your initial reaction when you saw the headlines that said Jon Jones had been arrested again?
I don't think there was one bit of surprise in me. It's just like, yeah, it was eventually going to happen. So, yeah, in no way threw me off.
I wonder if the Albuquerque police knows John by his first name. Are they on a first name basis?
I was like, damn, Gina, again.
Really? Florida Evans line. Damn.
Yeah, for me, I was just like, how? I just didn't know how how this could happen. Like, he posted a meme during the coronavirus that said, all we got to do is stay home. He couldn't stay home.
Man, this stuff like this don't surprise me when it comes to Jon Jones. I look for other people being surprised at this point rather than myself, because I want to see how many people are out there sipping on the Bones Kool-Aid at this point. Because there are people out there that I know it didn't come out right. I'm gonna run with it anyway. All right, because it's Combat Sports Talk, and it's after 9 p.m. and I could do, okay, censorship. Come find me, censorship. All right, I guess Rona's gonna be waiting outside my door too. Okay, so it's just like, what else can this man do at this point? I mean, really, what else can this man do?
So I
was so disappointed.
Mm-hmm.
I was so disappointed, man. Like it. To have seen him from where he started to now, and knowing the talent that's there, knowing the level of just what it takes to get to that level multiple times, back to back to back, to really say I'm undefeated. Not only am I undefeated, I'm considered the greatest of all time. But I can't keep my together. I'm sorry. I can't keep it together long enough.
Don't worry, George. They got a beat for you.
No, I gotta go in there now. Man. I gotta go in there now and find it and beep it.
But hey, if anything, you got it out the first 5 minutes, George. Good job, man.
That's how I feel about this. I'm so emotional about it that I'm getting outside of my character.
So I've got to wonder, though, is this one of those things that we should be surprised? Like, we've seen this in his character. This isn't the first time or second time it's come up. We know that this is part of who Jon Jones is. And we know that kind of addictive craziness is part of what drives him. Like, I think that we hold athletes maybe to too high of a standard, because there is a certain personality type. Like, none of our top professional athletes are truly squeaky clean. Some of them just have a better PR team that helps them clean it up. Like throughout all of Major League Football, there's all of the top quarterbacks have
Major League
scandal.
Football. Are you a sports ball fan or not?
I hate you so much. I caught myself. And I couldn't pull back.
I bet he's been waiting since the last show to do something like that.
Oh yeah, he's been holding on to some things, man. He's got some pent up.
The thing is, I gave Ryan a pass because when he was talking about the biggest thing we were going to talk about, I was going to be like, oh, the fact that he finally got an edge up.
Oh my God!
But he wants to play.
No, yeah, okay, because don't forget who's the only person wearing a hat.
I mean,
because he was like, my hairline. I was like, oh yeah, why don't you just put on a hat? We had to go on 10 minutes later because dude was looking for the right hat to cover up the headline.
All right, you got me. But I get ready to play the dungeon for real.
Gentlemen, I'm gonna need y'all to get back on point. We were talking about Jon Jones. Now we just started talking about hairlines.
Man, it's from Combat Sports Talk to Combat Sports Snap. Okay,
man.
I'm loving it. But no, I mean, it reminded me, and I'm about to carbon date myself a little bit. Episode of Growing Pains where little Mikey was going to see his favorite actor, his favorite singer, and he went and saw him, and he was a total jerk. And Alan Thicke's character, Daddy Seaver, he came over there like, little Mikey, you got to remember, you can respect the man's talent, but not the man. And I was like, gee, that was dope. And I've kept that mentality that you can respect the man's talent and not the man himself. And this is what I do with Jon Jones. Jon Jones is, bar none, a phenomenal athlete, but he is not the best person out there. Charles Barkley told us a long time ago, I am not a role model. All right, people need to understand that. That doesn't just apply to him. That applies to a lot of them. That was a message and a forewarning for all of us, non-pro athletes, not to worship these athletes out there on that level. Don't put them in a position that they can't do right. Okay, because they're not.
Unless it's Tim Tebow.
So are you calling him a victim by default?
I would never call anybody a victim by default because everybody's got choices to make. He chooses to act the way that he acts. Okay, there is no such. I refuse to call anybody a victim in this because it would be different if he constantly said, if he admits that he's a bad boy, all right, and it's like, man, this is what I do. Okay, I go out here, I get these women, and I make money. Okay, that's what I do. If he came out and did that, that to me would align him more to the person that what he is.
But that's not what he's doing. That's not what he's doing.
Well,
he is going out there and he's talking like he's some sage and he's, doing all these other things, pretending to be a role model. And then everybody's like, okay, he's changed. He keeps saying, I've changed. I'm different. I've learned from my mistakes and all that kind of stuff. And even though we are a country that likes to kick a person when they're down, we also like to see that second chance, that revival, that person who reinvents themselves and pulls themselves back out of that into success, right? And so we're all rooting for Jon Jones and like, okay, this is it. He's got 2 fights under his belt, no picograms called out. He's given shirts and turkeys away for Thanksgiving and jackets away for Christmas. He's doing all of the right things, and then DWI. And that's the frustrating thing for me, because now that we're looking at it, it's not only the fact that this is yet another offense that he has, but he's been given so many chances leading up to this one. I mean, let's not forget, he basically got a slap on the wrist for having a car accident and leaving the scene where he had a car accident with a pregnant woman. And he had drugs in the car. And he basically got a slap on the wrist for that. So what they're saying is that this is going all the way back to his 2012 DUI. He could finally have to pay some consequences for not only the actions that he had today or on Thursday, but going all the way back because they've given him chance after chance and all that kind of stuff. So this may be that time where he gets the book thrown at him and he gets a tattoo on the side of his face.
Two things.
Go
ahead,
most
George.
he's going
It's a
to
Mike
do
Tyson's
is,
reference.
18 months, though.
Yeah, we knew what the Mike Tyson thing was. I saw that. But the two things. One, okay, the defining moment of who Jon Jones was when he was with his favorite mistress, Daniel Cormier. Okay, when they did that ESPN interview and they were going back and forth with each other, that was Jon Jones. That was the real Jon Jones. And after that, he could not hide anything from me at that point because he showed who he truly was. All right, one thing. Two, when he got the slap on his wrist in 2016, the judge told him very simple: don't come back. Don't let me see you again. And I think that's going to be a foreshadowing of he might actually get it piled on him this time. And I hope he does, because nobody learns, especially in the case of Jon Jones, he's not going to learn until it's really piled on him. Okay?
I'm going to disagree just from a mental health perspective. So I don't think that, like, we're painting this dichotomy about the true Jon Jones versus the Jon Jones he portrays. What we're missing is the ability for a man to have multiple aspects that are 100% true simultaneously.
Yeah.
It can be 100%
It's
true
all
that Jon
him.
Jones wants to be this good preacher guy, but he's got demons on his back, literal disease of alcoholism that is on his back, that as try as he might, he has not gotten the right type of help. So punitive measures have not worked. This is why we end up with the justice system that we have today. He's got to go through more of a cognitive behavioral therapy where it's, how do we include a support system around him that gets him to where he needs to be? Jon Jones doesn't have the right system around him to date, because he came into the UFC a star. He rose to the top. We've seen this time and time again with child actors, with pro athletes who get a ton of money right out of the gate. The amount of people who make it without some sort of drug-related story, when you rise to the top and your dopamine levels are what they are at all times, it is 100% true that Jon Jones wants to be the good guy singing in church on Sundays, and at the same time 100% true that his biology...
Yeah.
That is 100% real. So Jon Jones is both of those people simultaneously, and us throwing the book at him doesn't set the, like, no one learns from, okay, so we threw the book at this guy, so I won't do it. Like, that's not how biology works. Like, there's going to be another Jon Jones.
Okay, so if you want to really sit here and psychoanalyze Jon Jones, it looks like that you're right. It's every side that he has shown is Jon Jones. It seems like he either has a need to want to please everybody, or he wants to be accepted by everybody, which are both equal to very toxic levels of mental health. Because
there's a lot of
now
narcissism there.
With a strong dose of narcissism. And what's going to end up happening, that if you really want to like that, well, it lost it. Guess my game is strong.
Damn, Gina.
Yeah. So here's the thing, though. So while Jon figures out his whatever happened there,
So back to what I was saying. I'm sorry, Ryan, to cut you off. Basically, what it boils down to is that Casey is absolutely right. If he wants to truly get better, because you're right. Just about every child star that we have seen that gets put in a position like that comes in and is just a phenomenal star. If he doesn't have a strong support system there, it's just not gonna work. Okay, we've seen it with Justin Bieber. We've seen it with Justin Timberlake.
Justin Timberlake. That dude has never gotten in trouble. What? Wait.
False.
What did he do?
If you look at all the different stroke kids, okay, those are a classic example of child stars
But
that did not have a strong support.
Taking yourself again, John.
But hold on. So I think it's interesting how we have gone and talked all about Jon Jones, and now all of a sudden he is this narcissistic, person who is suffering from, this torment, this torment, and it's like, no, there's still consequences for your actions, because at the end of the day, you have had multiple opportunities to address this. It's not like this is the first time where everybody's trying to come down on Jon Jones and we're mistreating him. No, this is one where he has had multiple times. He has gone to therapy. He actually went to rehab and then checked himself out and left. So it's like,
but that's the narcissism in him, though.
But
I mean,
what do you want us to do? You want us to be like, oh, he's
No, Ryan. Understand what I'm saying. I'm not. You of all people know how I am with this. You made a choice to do these things. You made a choice to get out there while we were under a planetary. Mother Earth told us to stay inside. Okay, forget what our leader said. Mother Earth told us stay inside. You're gonna catch some of this. Okay, and he chose to go out there and get drunk and act a fool. And now he is.
Can we get the thunderstorm right now?
I don't have the thunderstorm. Here, I can do this one.
You
So,
fell victim to one of the classic blunders.
There you go.
So real quick, I'm gonna cut in here and say, so with the fact that we recognize that some penalty, no matter where we land on the spectrum, that some penalty has to be imposed.
Sure.
Is stripping the belt the move to make here?
Yes.
Well,
No.
There is the ability to bet on this. You can actually place bets. So right now they are betting whether or not Jon Jones could get his belt stripped. If it's a minus 550 if you say yes. It's a plus 325 if you say no. So you could put $100 right now on no and come back with 325 if they don't strip him. But I think Dana White is like, he's done with Jon Jones. As long as, he's in trouble. I mean, who can actually be truly done with Jon Jones? He's one of the greatest fighters in the history of the world. But
I mean, they ask so many.
Let me ask y'all this.
okay,
Let me ask y'all
give
this.
the floor to George. He hadn't said much.
How likely is it that some of his behavior can be contributed to CTE?
No, I can't give it that, because he came into the game like this. Like, right out of the gate, he bought his Bentley and crashed it. While drunk.
I'm just saying,
So that was
like,
before
getting
CTE.
hit in the head, and we don't know how many strikes this man has or hasn't taken just in training or things like that. But, as a fighter, I can speak to it, man. It does alter your behavior.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, yeah, and this is something that, when you watch the recording of the DWI arrest, he talks about the fact that he has anxiety, that he talks about the fact that he's been hit a lot, and all those kind of things. Now, whether or not that's the alcohol talking, or, those are true statements.
Dude, drunk man speaks to sober man's mind.
There's something to be said about that. And that was the thing that Chael Sonnen eventually spoke out about Jon Jones, is because everybody's piling on him. You got Colby Covington sending memes and things like that. Everybody and their uncle have taken a dig. Jan Blachowicz. You got Diego Sanchez, which we'll talk about a little later, like he needs to be saying anything. Chael Sonnen said, not only are people, it's not really fair that people are piling on Jon Jones, and maybe he deserves it for his actions, but the police embarrassed Jon Jones. And the reason why he said that is because when the police pulled him over, the first question they asked is, have you been drinking? And he said yes. And at that point, it's like, then why are you taking him through a long sobriety test? Why are you doing all of that? Just do the breathalyzer.
Dot the I's and cross the T's.
No, you could just take a breathalyzer. You could just take a breathalyzer and be done. He's already copped to. He has been drinking. They were responding to shots. He was clearly looking like he was drunk. So breathalyzer. Now you search the car. Now you find the gun under the seat. You could have done all of that without having Jon Jones on on body cam, missing his numbers, failing to do all of the sobriety, agility type things. I think there may be some truth to the fact that the Albuquerque police know Jon Jones, they know who he is, and they decided to, hey,
make an example of him.
While we're at it, let's make America's Funniest Home Video.
And you know what? I can believe that. I think I believe both you and George, because I think they wanted to make sure that they proved that once again this man is a problem. One, and two, they wanted to embarrass him because he embarrassed one of their own. Remember when the cop had pulled him over and saying that he was he was speeding and everything, and he was drag racing, and Jon Jones did a lot of pushback on him. That could be stemming from that, to show that this dude is a problem.
Well, so here's what we're gonna do. For those of you who are watching out there, if you've got something to say about Jon Jones, if you've got some comments, go ahead, type them in that text box. Let us know what you think. Communicate with us. We'll put your comments on the air and we'll talk about it. All right.
Ryan, I do have a question while we're still on Jon.
Sure.
There was a statement made earlier about his defense attorneys or whatever saying that the current COVID-19 crisis could throw a curveball in the case.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not quite understanding where that's coming from. I hadn't kept up with it. What's the deal with that?
There's two issues here. The first one being that what they're saying is he could be in for a tougher sentence because he's got prior convictions, and because the sentencing was rather light on all of these convictions, he could be in for a bigger conviction. But because of COVID-19, the legal system is slowing down. They may not be able to get to this case for quite some time. And so while he's out on bail, this case may not be heard for 6, 8, maybe 10 months. So we may not actually find out what happens with this case until we get past the threat of COVID-19. So there's still a lot of dynamics that are in place for this case. We just have to sit and wait. And of course, I'm sure that between the four of us, we'll have an opinion about what's going to happen next.
All right. Thank you.
And Jon may have two opinions.
Wait, what's that? Left brain, right brain?
Yeah, I'm just saying. So if you, the people who are watching right now, if you've got something that you want to say about Jon Jones, what you think about this whole Jon Jones being arrested again, go ahead. Type in the text box. Let us know what you think. Send it to us. We'll put your comments on the air, and we'll talk about it. It's a fascinating case. Let's get into some of the other headlines with Finding the Angles. This is Finding the Angles. This is where we talk about the headlines that are making waves in the MMA world. And guys, the first thing we got to talk about is the second biggest topic that everybody is talking about, and that is UFC 249. And I got to drop for this. This is what I think about UFC 249.
Well, either you're closing your eyes to a situation you do not wish to acknowledge, or you are not aware of the caliber of disaster. Well, you got trouble, my friend.
That's right. You have some major trouble with UFC 249. And, that's something that we really kind of have to address, because as long as Dana White says that this thing is still going on, it appears as though they're continuing to push forward and push forward and push forward for it. And I'm not sure that we're going to actually see it's
a double-sided thing. It's double-sided because it's always, of course, hard for me to support Dana fully. But with Dana's efforts to push 249 forward, it's less about just having the fight and the fact that he still owns the air. Like, the rest of the leagues are not in it. And this is the absolute best time for him to capture a new audience and get people interested in the sport. He's got one of the biggest cards of the year, with the possibility of happening, though that's changed recently, and I'm sure we'll get into that. Mm-hmm. But from a promoter standpoint, like, he is in the best position of all leagues to capture new markets and new viewers. So I can see his standpoint from that. But it's also about, as Dana White would say, it's about having some restoration of normalcy. Like, we're used to having sports on TV, and he wants to be the provider for that. So in many ways, he sees his cause as noble, and right or wrong, depending on how it gets pulled off. Like, there's a lot of value in the fact that he's fighting for this card to happen.
Are you saying Dana White has the golden ticket?
I mean,
There it is.
Like,
real
he
talk.
jumped us like, I'm a winner right now. Nobody else is on. Everybody's got to watch me.
Yeah,
he really is.
But that's the thing, though. Like, when is this a lost cause? Because now we've extended now to April 30th the advisory not to continue the social distancing. So that means that this fight's supposed to happen April 18th. So if we're not supposed to be within 6 feet of each other, how are you going to hold UFC 249 where you're going to have an audience? You're probably not. Now you're looking at where you're going to hold it in the United States. You're getting fewer and fewer places as you go into larger and larger cities. Those are all having the shelter-in-place commands that are going on right now. So that means you're not going to have it in Las Vegas, at least not. They haven't extended their moratorium on licensing fights, but it's not happening in New York. They've already said that. So where are you going to hold it? If you're going to hold it outside of the country, where are you going to hold it? Because now you've got places that are closing down borders, and you can't actually get fighters to these locations. You're going to say something?
I got one place.
What's that?
It's called Abu Dhabi. Okay, that is one of the few places that is not locked down. There's been a dirty talk that is plan B, okay, to get all the fighters out there. However, it doesn't matter, Khabib is in jeopardy of not happening because Russia is locked down right now. Nobody in, nobody out. Khabib is totally okay with that. He's like, look, fighters need to get paid. They got families to feed, they got bills to pay. Let them go on without me. I'm okay with this. So if they can't get it done, because I think Dana's first choice is Florida, because Florida is one of the few places in the nation that is still wilding out. Okay, have they locked them down now? Have they locked?
Florida has finally gotten it together and locked it down. But there are some loopholes around this. Like, there's some ways that you can mitigate the liability. So a lot of more hospitals now have their own private testing capabilities and can return results within 24 hours, which means that he can get a small group of people tested for the fighters' camps and the fighters themselves to mitigate the chances that anyone in this group that's coming, this select small group that's coming in, has coronavirus. So that could open up some doors for them. The fact that we've got more independent testing that can happen. You still run into the problem with the athletic commissions themselves granting licenses, but Dana has always been able to work magic. So I don't think it's really a question of if it can happen. It's more of how soon can he lock in logistics? Because there are loopholes to make this happen.
Yeah, I think Jon has the more compelling point, though, that in Russia, Khabib Nurmagomedov can't get out of Russia. They've locked Russia down, nobody in and nobody out. So I'm going to kick this over this way to George and say, George, if you're a fighter and you finally made it to the championship fight, you failed to fight this dude 4 times, and now they're telling you that, well, he can't get out, so we're going to give you somebody else potentially. Is that satisfactory for you? Are you gonna be like, I'll take this fight because I got to get paid, or do you want to fight the guy that you trained and you've been waiting 6 years or something like that to fight?
Unless Dana White's going to pay me $1 gazillion, I'm waiting on Khabib.
There you have it.
Even as a company man, though.
You
think about how much that hurts the company as a whole. Like they need a big name for the top.
And let's talk about me, because the UFC has not always been a friend of Tony Ferguson. They stripped him of a belt undeservedly.
Mm-hmm.
They damn near ridiculed him through his mental health crisis issues or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And don't get me wrong, Tony has his own self-inflicted wounds.
Mm-hmm.
Granted, quit putting out them damn videos.
Hold on, man. Some of those workouts are hard.
He has no obligation whatsoever to save this card for Dana White, in my opinion. Dana White has not always been a friend to him. They have not shown him in the most favorable light. They definitely could have done way much more promotionally with him than what they've done.
What if they give him an interim title?
Boy, you almost made me curse a second time.
That came from a real place.
Yeah.
It rolled off my tongue.
So John, what are your thoughts on this, man? Like, would you take? I mean, right now, what it's looking like, they are offering Justin Gaethje, which would be a great fight. Like, I would love to see Tony Ferguson versus Justin Gaethje, but Justin Gaethje ain't Khabib Nurmagomedov, and even if you had an interim title, that just means it's a 6th time. We used to joke that the number of times that we were going to fight on Street Fighter versus me and John, we're like Khabib Nurmagomedov and Tony Ferguson. Like, now it's just number 6. It's just another failed attempt. This number 5 is going to fail. Number 6 is got to be the one, right?
Brian?
Yeah.
John?
Yeah.
I got how you fix this for Tony.
How?
Okay.
Give him McNuggets.
McNuggets.
That's how you fix this for him. That's how you get him in here.
And you make
Well,
that.
Where is McGregor? Yeah,
Connor
where is
doesn't want
McGregor
that
in the world right now?
You know what Connor's doing? Connor is calling for a moratorium. He's like, we shouldn't be fighting right now. We should shut it down. Well, because he lost his aunt. His aunt died.
Yeah.
And it was devastating for him to see the effects of COVID-19 on his family. So he's like, no, we need to shut this down. Why is Dana trying to keep this fight going? And it's like, yeah, but you got $100 million for fighting freaking Floyd Mayweather, and you've got a wildly successful whiskey business. No, you don't have to fight.
Yeah.
So, only way I'm fighting Gaethje, because Gaethje to Ferguson, on paper, it looks like Gaethje might be a tomato can.
Nah,
to
he's
Ferguson,
a better fighter.
But he is, like I was getting ready to go to, Gaethje is a dangerous fighter. Only way I'm fighting Gaethje is if I am guaranteed that win or lose, whatever happens here, that me and Khabib are fighting afterwards. Okay, that's the only way I'm fighting this guy. Because otherwise,
there's no upside in any of this for Tony.
No.
There you go.
Yeah,
Preach.
The only upside
even regardless of the payday. If I'm Tony, it's like, y'all are giving me that fake interim belt before, and you took it. Like, there's no respect in that. Why would I even, lower myself to go after something like that again?
So, yeah, it's a lot of danger for Tony in that, like, I don't see Gaethje as a tomato can because his skill set is beyond just wrestling, right? So I would imagine that Tony Ferguson has been looking at takedown defense for a hot minute now because he knew this fight was coming up. He's been focused on a very specific fighter. Gaethje brings in a whole nother dynamic, and he's got to this spot for a reason. He is dangerous on his own. There really isn't a path to a Tony success here. So while I can see that it was important for Dana to offer Tony this fight to keep this going and show goodwill, I think as an MMA fan, I have no hard feelings if Tony backs out of this because there's no at all. Like, there's no reason for him to continue down this path.
So okay. So we're saying Justin Gaethje, maybe not. There are other people who were raising their hand. Dustin Poirier. So what would we think about Dustin Poirier versus Tony Ferguson? Is that better for Tony?
No,
none of those. Definitely not.
Dustin versus Gaethje.
That's what I think.
That would.
But you're not going to headline a card with that. You're not going to headline a card.
Who are you going to headline it with?
Tony
you're going to have a UFC pay-per-view, probably the last one for many moons, and you're going to headline it with Justin Gaethje and Dustin Poirier. Now,
but see, you got Ryan. You got to look at and I'm sorry to cut you off. You got to look at the long play here. Okay, so yeah, we pulled this off because we say we're going to do this. Okay, but after they come out, do you not know the potential fights that you would have? this, this, is this the moment where when I grabbed the belt from while he was beating me and just, I grabbed the belt and I'm in trouble? No, this is the moment where after this is all said and done, every week we have a potential of having a monster card to catch up on every fight, every fight that we missed. This is the time that we catch up. I think it's a better play to put Gaethje versus Poirier in the main event and say, look, we're done for this until this is all passed over. But I promise y'all, when we get back, y'all not gonna sleep well for the next few months.
And don't get me wrong, just because this card doesn't have Tony and or Khabib doesn't mean it can't be a great card either. Because I know my friend KC over there is about to chime in and tell me who he got on this card.
All right, who you got, KC? What were you thinking?
I have two options here, and I'm gonna start with the most ridiculous one first because I'm that guy. This would be the perfect moment for a crossover event to finally happen. Bellator versus UFC.
Oh
my gosh. Michael Venom Page, now is your shot. Now is your shot.
Okay.
Bruh. I told you it was ridiculous.
All right, so who would you Michael Venom Page versus who? Michael Venom Page fights at welterweight, right? So you've got here we go. We got a comment here from Adrian Lopez. What he's saying is or ONE FC.
Yes.
Oh.
There you go.
I would love to see Mighty Mouse come back.
Oh man, a triumphant Mighty Mouse coming back?
No, I'm gonna tell you who needs to headline this card now.
All right, who's that?
Francis Ngannou.
Well, Rosenstruck, they're supposed to be on it. They're supposed to be on 249.
Make them the headline of the card, man.
Now, here's someone else there's another group of fighters who have raised their hands, and they go by the name of Colby Covington and Tyron Woodley.
I watched that. That was going to be my backup fight.
Was it really?
That was my number 2. That was my backup fight. But the problem is, we all know that your boy Colby is prone to say that he'll take a fight and find some back channel way to be like, oh no, Woodley backed out. And it's always Colby who backs out of it. He's going to come up with an excuse. I don't believe it can come together in time.
Well, I whatever they do, I personally don't believe that Dana White is going to be able to pull it off. Last week, he was daring people to bet him that he can't pull it off. I don't think that he's going to be able to find a venue. Even if he does find Abu Dhabi, I don't think he's going to be able to get Khabib Nurmagomedov and Tony Ferguson in the same ring. Even if he does, I don't think that you're going to be able to get all of that in time to be able to promote it sufficiently. So I think that there's a lot of things that's going to hold him back from being able to successfully make UFC 249 what it could have been were it not for coronavirus. George, I'll give you the last statement there.
I was going to say, he still has a lot of other options, and you got to remember, they already know they're not going to have a crowd at this one. So they're coming in already expecting a loss. This is an opportunity for them to show goodwill, and like KC said, catch a plethora of new fans. And so in doing this, he still does have quite a few options. They can go to a state that doesn't have a commission, somewhere that doesn't have as many, lockdowns and deaths. Like I'm looking through the list of states right now that have deaths from coronavirus, and like there are several that are just like 3, 4 or whatever. It's just it's not as prevalent there yet as some other places. And I'm willing to bet you many of those states, one like Michigan, would be more than willing to take on a UFC fight. Somewhere like Detroit, right across the water, is Canada. Like there's some places back here in the States that we just haven't thought about.
Well, speaking of Colby Covington, he is always beefing. He's beefing with Tyron Woodley. He's also beefing with my girl, Joanna Jędrzejczyk. The beef continues. He really laid into her, once she got finished with Zhang Weili in that fight. She took a lot of damage there. And basically what he's saying is the reason why she's mad at him and the reason why she's talking smack about him is not because of the fact that he broke the rules at ATT around not talking smack about your teammates, but because she hit on him and he rebuffed her advances. Do you think there's any juice in that? I don't think there's any juice in that.
I think there is. Only in a sense. I put that pause in there for the reaction. I think that Joanna Jędrzejczyk, amongst her teammates, she does seem to be like a true team player. Like, she cares about them. She's in their life. All the stuff that I say, like, she doesn't show the rest of, like, in conferences. Like, if you watch the video of her in the gym, like, when she's with her fight team, she's with her team. So I can see her being friendly. And honestly, Colby is such an antisocial person that he interprets her being a good teammate as her flirting with him, and he blows it out of proportion, and then she has to in kind react, and then it just kind of becomes a spiraling effect. So I think in his head, Joanna's hitting on him, but in reality, Joanna's just a good teammate, a bad person on the mic, but a good teammate, and it's just all misconstrued.
Yeah.
And there's a language barrier somewhere too.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. But yeah, and that's what I think too. I mean, she was on Ariel Helwani, and she was saying, she's like, Colby Covington is a talented fighter. He works so hard. She's like, I don't understand why he's doing this. She's like, we need to get rid of him. It's bad for the gym, which goes to your point, KC, that she really cares about the people in her gym and on her fight team, because she was nothing but complimentary in his. To John's point, she respected him as a fighter. She just doesn't respect him as a person, and she feels like someone is writing his content and telling him what to say. So, you know, it bothers me that Colby Covington continues to take pot shots, because he's taking pot shots at everybody, trying to find anyone who will give him just the slightest bit of attention to go on. And to me, it's played out. John, you've been quiet.
Oh, no, just been observing. You're absolutely right. It is played out. The thirst is real with Covington. If anything, if we were going to see a Bellator crossover, I would love to see Michael Venom Page versus Colby Covington. I would love to see that, because I think he could put, if anybody's going to act a fool, it would be MVP on Colby Covington. Okay, that would be the one.
Yeah, is it wrong for me to say I'd take Colby Covington?
Yeah, I would.
Oh, wow.
I hate it.
I would want Michael Venom. I'd root for him. I would root for him. But I'd be picking Colby Covington.
Y'all are trash. Okay,
I mean,
really?
Colby showed up in his title fight. Let's be real.
But and the whole JJ issue, there might be some truth to it. It could be the other way around. Okay, it could be Colby, might have thrown some game at her, and she was like, I don't think so.
Well, that's what Adrian is saying. He said that basically Joanna Jędrzejczyk turned him down, and now he's like, hey, she came at me. She's not even a 7, and I only get interested whenever they're a 7 or above, and it's like, come on.
That's what salty players say. That's what salty players say, man.
Right. So another thing that Adrian said, which segues nicely into what we were talking about before, is, Joanna Jędrzejczyk, we've been following Facegate, which is Joanna Jędrzejczyk's face after Zhang Weili's frequent punches to the forehead. We went back and watched the Fight Motion. So I don't know if you guys know about this or not, but after a pay-per-view, specifically a pay-per-view, you can go and search UFC Fight Motion, and they do super slow motion of the action on the pay-per-view. And so if you watch...
How do you find it again?
UFC Fight Motion. You go on just on YouTube and search for that, and you'll see the super slow motion of all of the main card fights. And to go back and watch Zhang Weili versus Joanna Jędrzejczyk, the thing, and I showed it to my daughter Catherine. I was like, watch how many times Joanna Jędrzejczyk gets punched in the forehead. And it gets over and over, such that even when she moves her head, the swelling, the fluid that's under the scalp would move around. It was bizarre. So I say that because we've been following, because that fluid had to go somewhere, and so it went down her face, and then her face was, it was darker than mine, because it was as she was trying to to heal from all of this. So finally,
this is your cultural awareness moment. First of all, we can never say that again. You have been warned.
Fair enough.
Oh my God.
So Joanna Jacek was talking about the fact that she hates. That's one thing she hates about the fight is the physical toll that it takes on her. You know, what she said was there are still bruises. She's still, she's still healing, but during that healing process, the swelling got so bad that she could not see. She was blind in one eye because the swelling had gotten so bad. So, when we start talking about the damage that fighters take and what they do, it all really comes back together with the fighters need to fight in order to pay for their lives, in order to survive. But it's a huge cost, and no one has taken a bigger cost to their life and their health than, I say, Diego Sanchez. Diego Sanchez leads the UFC in number of strikes taken.
That's only because Justin Gaethje only recently joined the UFC.
Amen.
Yeah, but so Diego Sanchez, he has been really all over the place his whole career. We go back to the different nicknames he's gotten, all the things that he said when he found Jesus, and then that changed his whole outlook and the way that he approached fighting. And then he found Joshua, what's his name?
His oracle.
Yes, his guru.
Oracle of fight.
Joshua Fabian or something.
Fabio.
Joshua Fabia. And now, because people are saying there clearly these have to be signs of CTE, that Diego Sanchez is making these irrational decisions, and Diego Sanchez has had it. He has gone out and said, what did you know? You watch a movie, you read an article, there's no proof that's of CTE, just another mental weapon to affect the minds of the weak. He says, like a placebo effect in a negative way. I have no CTE or any signs of any brain damage, and am I talking like Nick Diaz? No, I am speaking better than I ever have. Maybe I'm the cure for CTE, way outside of the box. I think that absolutely he's talking like he's got CTE. What do you guys think?
Yeah, man.
I think this is the poster case for why science matters, right? Like, let's be honest about how CTE comes. So for him to say that he doesn't see signs of CTE, I mean, most often this stuff is diagnosed after the fact. So they're gonna dissect his brain later and find out, like, whoa, this has been really bad. But in this moment, I would also imagine that he's going to go to a doctor who's going to confirm what you want to hear. Just like when you get cut when you're blind in a fight and you get your cut man to help you see a little better. And people have tricks and tips to keep the fight going. I think this is the same thing for him, where he's got the people in his corner who are just kind of keeping them going, even though it's not necessarily in the best interest of the fighter.
Yeah, I think that you're right. I think it's the people in his corner, specifically Josh Fabia, because he is the only one in his corner. Remember that. He doesn't have a corner anymore. He doesn't have management. He doesn't have coaches. He has this one guy, and this one guy is getting elevated, getting attention, and is getting the whole of the money that a fight camp would typically make off of a fighter. And I'm not meaning it to sound predatory like that, but you know what I'm saying. And so the one person that they probably haven't gone to see is a doctor, because then the doctor would have to tell them the truth. So there's lots of people out there who just don't want to go to the doctor because they don't want to have to hear the potential diagnosis that they may get. So I would argue that Diego Sanchez has not come within 50 miles of a doctor.
I mean, if you compare Diego Sanchez to Mark Hunt, like, I feel like if Mark Hunt has CTE, then Diego Sanchez has, like, CTEEEE.
Wow.
George, you're quiet. What do you think?
Man, Diego Sanchez deserves, like, a medal or an award or something, because he has used his platform and circumvented his mental illness so much that half the time we're not even talking about his mental illness. We're talking about his new coach, Joshua Fabia. Like, you get what I'm saying? Like, there was this issue, and this should have been the sole issue. And he's so slick with his mental illness, he got us on talking about this coach that's not even a factor or whatever. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Here we're bringing it up now. We're having that discussion, but I just want you to understand how mental illness works and how evil and contrived it can be and how manipulative it can be. You get what I'm saying? So him choosing Joshua Fabia, we're thinking that Joshua Fabia is taking advantage of Diego. Diego's mental illness is taking advantage of Joshua Fabia. Is what's happening.
Wow. Now, I was going to say that I thought when you said Diego Sanchez needs a medal, I was going to go with plate. If we were playing the match game, I was going to go with metal plate. We would not have matched on that one. So when we start talking about these types of concerns, you know, UFC 250 is coming right behind UFC 249, and there are a lot of concerns out there of the fighters who were scheduled to fight May 16th in Sao Paulo, Brazil, about continuing training. So there's the other half. There's all the fighters who want to fight, and there are fighters who want to get, you know, actually take use of their training. But then there are some fighters who are like, I don't know enough about this disease, and I don't know who has it and who's being tested and those types of things. But I have to fight. My fight is coming up. I don't want to be exposed to the disease, but I also don't want to go home and expose my family to the disease. And so this is an interesting thing, because now you've got to start thinking about, even if a fighter wants to go and train, there is an impact to their families and their external communities whenever they come back from training and fighting and putting their lives on the line in the midst of all this. So KC, you clearly have something to say here. What do you got?
I have a solution that I haven't brought up in a while. Collective bargaining. If there was a fighters union, they would be able to fight for tighter controls and figuring out exactly what the messaging is. Like, do we all get paid during this time where we're not able to fight? What are the parameters for us to choose to fight? Who's in and who's out? The way that the UFC is currently run makes it really good for a roughshod organization to kind of make up their own rules and leave the liability and risk up to the fighters. That's problematic. Like, they're big time now. It's time for a union to step in and help make some of these decisions on a more programmatic level versus fighter by fighter. Choose your own fate. Ready, fight.
John.
I agree with KC. There's nothing like a giant FU to stop all this stuff and, you know, have people sit there and come to the table and say, look, we need to, what guarantees do we have for our safety? This has been long overdue. Mark Hunt was right. They needed this for so many years, and it's long overdue.
Now's the time. They have the bargaining power right now, because this is that moment where you've got Dana White still trying to push, and he could be the only show in town. If the fighters collectively say, we will not fight unless we have a union, they win. Like, this is the only time in UFC history where the fighters truly could have the upper hand if they unionized.
Well, I think the Offspring said it best. You got to keep them separated, because that's what it is. The reason why you're not going to have a collective bargaining is because you're not able to get the fighters to move as a monolith. And if they're not going to be able to move together, then they'll never be able to have a fighters union. You need it's not even the little guys who need to stand up. It's the Tony Fergusons and the Khabib Nurmagomedovs and the Conor McGregors. It's the big names that actually bring the UFC to the bargaining table. Because if you're not one of the headliners in the UFC, you're not going to have even if you are the entire prelims of all the fights that we've had this year, you're not enough to be able to bring the UFC to the bargaining table. You have to have the big guys who are willing to stand up and say, no, this is not right, not only for me, but for these guys that are trying to make their way when they're only making $2,500 a fight. That's when you finally get that tipping point. George, you are a fighter. You are a coach of fighters. what do you think about this whole idea of having a fighters union?
You know, I was wondering, is there anything in boxing like that at all? I can see the benefits of having a union. I could also see how it could hamper and cause some issues too. There'd just be a lot that need to be worked out if there was a union. I mean, right now, fighters are individuals. This is not a team sport. The only sports that contain a union seem to be team sports. One of the thoughts I had is that, speaking of teams, we're looking at like out at AT&T or ATT or, any of the other big camps, maybe something along those lines where the teams got involved and could coordinate things as far as a union. I don't know. There's a lot that needs to be worked out. And until that happens, we're going to continue to suffer the reign of the UFC as it is.
Leslie Smith, reach out to me. I got a million ideas on unionizing.
All right, Leslie Smith, of course, is the person who's the tip of the spear of what is it called? Operation Spearhead, I think it is. That's trying to get Project Spearhead. Yeah. That's trying to get fighters to unionize, and she's actually going to school right now while she's fighting in Bellator. She's maybe one fight away from fighting for the featherweight title against Chris Cyborg. And she's also going to school at the same time to become a lawyer so that she can actually take part in leading the charge for a union. So shout out to Leslie Smith, my cousin. Not really.
This is your cultural awareness moment.
There's another warning. Am I being warned again?
Are you disowning Stephen Smith as your other cousin?
Oh, see, no, he needs a warning. This guy over here needs a warning for the Stephen A. Smith comment.
Speaking of, did y'all hear his comments about Jon Jones Arrest and stuff?
No, I haven't heard it.
I refuse to listen to it.
He's got some audio out there. Him and another commentator, one of the boxing guys. I can't remember his name. But they spoke truth to it, man. Both of them, they definitely distanced themselves from Jones and said, this man needs a wake up, that he hasn't learned his lesson. That I'm sorry, I didn't mean to get back on Jones. We were talking about a union for fighters. Let's get back on that. My bad.
So here we've got a question come in from Kaylee Gallagher. So she wants to know what our feelings are on Michael Chiesa.
Wow.
So,
everybody just looked like,
Well,
Kaylee,
you stumped the whole crowd.
Michael at 170 has been beastly while you're playing, though.
Absolutely.
He should have never came in at 155. He should have came in at 170 and just started owning people because he's a little late to the party, but we're glad he's here. Okay, because he is owning people left and right.
Yeah, go ahead.
Think about him in terms of fighting for a title at 170. Like, think about a matchup between him and Kamaru.
Ooh, I don't know about that one.
Kamaru all day. What you talking about?
That's a level. There's levels to this game, and I don't think Chiesa's at that level.
Yeah, but Chiesa is big for 170 though. I mean, he might actually be able to go up to one. But Chiesa also has the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu that is pretty tough. Now, Tony, he's coming in from YouTube. He's saying Chiesa's a bum and he's just fighting deteriorating fighters. So these are strong words coming from Tony.
All right, Kaylee, don't run up on Tony.
You need the thunderstorm right there again.
Yeah, we're gonna have to get the lightning bolts for this. So I don't know. I mean, you have to. So so Tony has a pick for you, George. What Tony's saying is that Chiesa needs to fight Jeff Neal.
Oh, a local homegrown talent here in Dallas.
Oh.
That would be a good fight. I think, I could definitely see that. I give Jeff the edge in that even.
Oh, so Kaylee, I don't know if you're from you're from the Seattle area, but she's like, he's got work to do. Chiesa's got work to do, but he's on the road, and I think that's true. I think Chiesa is on the road, coming up he's gonna be fighting top 5 talent soon because he's just running through folks.
Yeah,
I like him
not.
at 170.
Yeah, if he keeps doing what he's doing, we're gonna find out pretty soon on whether or not he is about that life. Okay, we're gonna find out one way or another.
Yeah, she's from
He's
Spokane.
like a 170 Damian Maya.
He is.
Hey man,
But
that's
wait,
not a bad.
wait, how is he gonna be a 170 Damian Maya when Damian Maya is 170?
Maya's at 170.
Between 185
So
and
does that
we
make
go.
Damian Maya the baddest man at that weight?
Is he the
The most
BMF?
dangerous man at that weight?
No, Damian is just.
Is he the BMF of 170? Is
I have to say I used to be very high on Damian Maya because nobody wanted to get down and grapple with Damian Maya. But now I am on a new guy. His name is Gilbert Burns. That dude is Damian Maya 2.0. That's the guy.
I'm sorry that he now has to wear that mantle.
He's Damian Maya 2.0. He's got the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, but he's got them hands as well.
Who has he beaten?
Damian Maya.
Anybody else?
He's coming up. He that was his first top. I think that was his first top 10 fight. But he started calling out, the Kamaru Usmans, the Tyron Woodleys. He's calling out everybody. He wants that fight. I think welterweight is the most exciting division right now for me because you've got all of these fighters who are at the top, who are apex level fighters, but then you've got these people who are coming up like Chiesa, like Gilbert Burns, who haven't been tested yet. And I think that you've got enough fodder at that mid-range at the top 10. Like, you got your Stephen Wonderboy Thompson, so we haven't seen him in a long time.
See,
We haven't seen him
this also
win in a
makes the
long
case
time.
for
Yeah,
the
that's
165 division when you think about what you're saying. There's just so much going on in that weight class, that needs to be
165.
sorted out.
Not 165.
Nah, they can still fight at 170.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm talking about there's those in betweeners, the guys that float between. Because think about it, it's what Chiesa did. He was a 155er. He bumps up to 170. Kevin Lee, 155er, bumps up to 170. Damian Maya was a 185er. He fought 185.
Mhm.
He drops down to 170. There's so many folks floating in and out of that division, man.
But I don't think they want to be like boxing where every 10 pounds you have a champion because it kind of floods the whole gate on who's the current champion at the time. It makes sense to keep it at how they have it. If anything, they could tighten it up a little bit more.
I feel like 170 is that division, that area, that weight class where you got so many guys that could be heavy or light in it. I've seen it with some of my own fighters. I got a fighter, his normal weight class is 155, but he walks around a little heavier than 170-ish. He got to the point where he was having trouble making 155, but he really was too small for 170. It's just
So you're
it's
saying
one
the
of those.
165 weight would have been perfect for him.
Here's the thing.
There's a lot of guys out there. Kevin Lee is an example of that.
Yes,
Kevin
he
Lee
is.
is the quintessential example of the guy who needs 165 pounds because he's not big enough to fight at 170 and he's too fat to fight at 155. So he needs something in between. But he's going to be like the only guy who's a proper 165 guy, and then you start flooding it in with the
I'm
170s.
willing to bet you there's more out there, man. You're going to see Jorge Masvidal.
Yeah.
Even though he's winning, I would bet you that's a better weight class for him, 165ish. He could flourish there. This guy's out there, man. We just have to pay attention to him. Well, we've already talked about it. That division is so chock full. There's just so many matchups because there's so many guys in there.
It creates a problem for the UFC because of the dynamic they've created in this whole champ situation. Being a champ at 170 and then moving down to take the 165 belt, like I think that would happen like every other fight if you create a 5 pound difference. Like it waters down the
170 would jump up. It would be like 172ish, 175. So there'd be 155, 165, 175, 185. There you would have those 10-pound increments. Yeah.
And then I guess we'll keep light heavyweight at 205 then.
So you don't think that there's going to be an issue with a 175 class if, like, won't we still run into the same problem of light fighters and heavy fighters? Like 170ers are now too light for 175.
The biggest gap after that is going to be 185 to 205, 20-pound gap there.
Yeah.
That one I don't. We haven't had that. That one already exists. You don't see that problem there that much. Anderson Silva, he's floated between 185 to 205. He's fought 205 before, but he knows that's not his weight class. There is a big enough gap in between those, body wise, where guys know, hey, this is my proper weight class. This one isn't.
All right.
Did anyone else feel cheated on the Anderson Silva versus Daniel Cormier fight? Like, that just didn't look right.
Well, what are you going to do? They had to do something. The fight was in jeopardy. Cormier's opponent was out. Like, what are they going to do? Anderson Silva stepped up. He was a company man. He did what he had to do. He took a butt whipping for the company.
Facts. All right.
Facts.
Just that whole
loyalty.
Weight class thing made me think of that.
All right. Well, that's it for our show. Follow us on social media. On Instagram, I am at Combat Sports Talk.
I'm at Keys to Victory, and that's Keys with a ES.
I'm at Darkside_MMA_.
I'm at OnlyFans.
No. Why?
I mean,
why? We're at the end of the show. Why?
Good job.
I felt it'd be easier to edit.
Yes.
No, we're leaving that in there. We are leaving that in there, and that's gonna be the promo clip.
It was a mistake.
They're gonna, I have sinned. That's gonna be our promo clip for the week. Do you want to communicate one of your mini Instagram?
Yeah, if you're looking for thirst traps, please check out Push Pull Pray on Instagram.
You can find us on our website at www.combatsportstalk.com, and we are on all of your favorite podcasting platforms, YouTube, wherever you want to go and find Combat Sports Talk. Just type it in the box, you'll find us. Want to send a shout out to MMA Junkie, MMA Fighting, MMA Mania, Bloody Elbow, the Intelligent Defense Discussion Group. If you want to talk about MMA and UFC with intelligent people, then do it on the Intelligent Defense Discussion Group. Look for them at intelligentdefense.net and other sites that are providing stories for our show. Guys, it's been a pleasure. This has been a great show, and now I've got to get to editing out certain words, thanks to George G Money Stallworth.
and mine.
No, I'm leaving that in there.
Be of service to keep you up all day, right?
All right. Hey, on behalf of George G Money Stallworth, John Keys, and KC Onyebuchi, this is Ryan Smith reminding you to keep your hands up, your chin tucked, and throw bombs. We'll catch you next time.